Hi there. You ready for another story? Well, this one is called Betsy Bigmouth, and it's by Felicity Hoffecker with pictures by Virginia Bates. You ready? Betsy Biggins had a big problem. Every time she opened her mouth, something nasty came out of it. Not a load of snakes and toads like the little girl in the fairy tale. Much worse. A load of nasty words about people she knew. For instance, one day when she was playing with her friend Sarah, Betsy said, "My mother is a real pain, and she wears awful clothes that make her look like a real freak." And they both laughed. The next day, when she was walking down the street with her friend Mabel, Betsy told her, "Sarah is such a dumbbell. She doesn't know anything." And they both laughed. And the day after that, Betsy told her brother Sam, who was building a model boat in the basement, "That Mabel, she's so ugly. She has pimples on her nose, and she's cross-eyed too." And she imitated Mabel, and they both laughed. That evening, Betsy was sitting out on the steps with Joan from next door. She said, "My brother Sam is building a boat in the basement, and he's doing it so badly it will never work." And she added, "He's so stupid." And they fell off the steps, giggling. When Betsy's mother called her to help with the dishes and asked her whom she had been talking to, Betsy replied, "Oh, only Joan from next door, and she's so boring." It was a relief to come in and do dishes. Her mother didn't laugh. Betsy's mother said, "What a nasty thing to say. You don't need to be so rude and unpleasant. Joan is a very sweet girl, and saying things like that about her is not nice, and it's not funny. How would you like it if someone talked about you that way?" Betsy just laughed. The next day at school, Betsy told her friend Alice that her mother was really a witch in disguise, so she wouldn't need to dress up for Halloween, and they both laughed. Then one day, coming home from school, Betsy stopped by a tree in the park to tie her shoes. Suddenly she realized that Alice and Joan were on the other side of the tree, talking about her. "That Betsy Biggins is one of the nastiest people I know. I can't stand her," said Alice. And Joan joined in. "I don't like to play with her because she's so mean and says such horrible things about everyone. She should be called Betsy Bigmouth." This time, Betsy didn't laugh. Betsy came home and went up to her room and thought about what she had heard. She wondered if people had felt that way about her all the time, and if they had just laughed at what she said in order to be polite. She wondered if anybody liked her at all, and she cried. The next day, Betsy went up to Joan and said how pretty Alice was looking in her new dress. This time Joan didn't laugh. She just smiled. And when she saw Sarah, Betsy told her that Joan and her both thought Alice was very pretty, and added, "Joan is always so nice and kind." And Sarah smiled too, and took Betsy's hand. And that night, in the kitchen after dinner, Betsy told her mother, "Sam is just finishing his model boat, and it really looks nice. He is working on it very hard." And her mother smiled and said, "Yes, he is. And you seem to be working at being a lot nicer." And she gave Betsy a hug. That night, when Betsy Biggins went to bed, She felt nice and warm and happy about all her friends and her family, and she lay in bed and smiled. The end. I don't know why it is that people laugh when we say terrible things about others, but we all seem to do it sometimes. You know, funny people on TV sometimes get people to laugh by saying terrible things about others, and we make jokes about others, but it's not always a nice thing to do. It's okay to kid around some, but when we run the risk of hurting the feelings of others, that's not a good thing at all. Kidding can go too far. I know I'm guilty of kidding people too much sometimes. We need to say things that make them feel better. We need to find good things to say about people like Betsy did toward the end of the book. There's a fellow named Paul. He was a friend of Jesus. He wrote a lot of the Bible. And he said, Jesus does not want us to use words that tear down, but rather to build up. What he meant by that was we need to use words that make us closer as a community, that build strength so that we trust each other and that we like each other and we can cooperate and work together. When we say mean things sometimes, it breaks our friendships and our community, and it makes it harder for us to work together. But we need to be able to work together so we can do what Jesus wants us to do. So Jesus wants us to build up our community so we can work together and do the work He's given us to do. And you know why He wants us to say good things and to build up the community? It's because He loves us this much. So God bless you. God bless you that you remember always you are the beloved child He created you to be. And good night.